Today on Gear Review, what we're going to be looking at today is an overdrive pedal by a company called JHS. I was on a forum, and there seemed to be a lot of heat generated on this pedal, and it didn't seem like there was a whole heck of a lot of stuff out there. I mean, there were some shootouts and comparison between this and the pedal it was based on, but not really like a real good review of the pedal. There is a decent review of the pedal on the JHS site, though. I will have to point that out. But the main reason I'm shooting this video is one of my friends found out I had the pedal and was like, "Can you do a review of it?" So, John Cooper, here is your JHS Andy Timmons signature overdrive pedal review. This pedal is pretty freaking awesome for a lot of reasons. First off, I'm a big Andy Timmons fan. I have been for a while. He did a clinic up near Cary a few years ago, so I got to meet him, and I got to actually hear his rig live with no studio tricks, just his pedal board and his rig. And I mean, tone wise, he is an absolute monster, and he is just a master of pulling great tone out of his gear. I learned a lot. I learned a lot that day about dialing in amps and picking pedals. But back then he was using mostly he was using a 2-amp system. He was using Mesa Boogie Stiletto Stage 2, and he was using a Lone Star. And between those 2 amps, he was using either a BB preamp pedal, tube driver, BK Butler tube driver. And between the different amps and the different pedals, he was able to pull out or replicate the sounds of all his previous stuff plus the sounds of the Revolution album. Now, to clear up a couple things that I've read on a couple of forums that are wrong, the Resolution album was not, I repeat, was not recorded with Mesa Boogie amps. That's a common misnomer that people believe. Like, oh, you hear that album, those Mesas sound great. Those albums were recorded with Marshall amps and overdrive pedals. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken on this because it's been a long time since I did this research, it's either a Plexi or a Super Drive, and then and running into the front of it with a JK Butler tube driver. And that pretty much is the sound of Resolution. In some of his older recordings, he actually used Laney amplifiers. Now, what pedals and stuff he was exactly using, I don't really know. But I just went through all that just to point out that most of the recordings that he has done in his career have not been with Mesa Boogie amplifiers. Now, the album after Resolution, Andy Timmons' band plays Sgt. Pepper's. That was recorded with Mesa Boogie amplifiers, and I believe the new album is also recorded with Mesa Boogie amps. And this is me rubbing his head.
Being weird.
So anyway, that's just a look into. It's not a look, but that's just a little back history. So, of course, my pedal board at that particular point in time had a BB preamp pedal because I was huge into the tone of Andy Timmons. Mesa Boogie discontinued the Stiletto model. Not long after I saw that clinic with Andy Timmons was it that they discontinued the model. It was like the following year or year, maybe 2 years. So Andy began using Lone Stars predominantly. And he started switching up which pedals he was using this year, but I think what he finally settled on was he used a Keeley modded Blues Driver pedal from Boss, and then he was using an Angry Charlie for other things. Well, he fell in love with the Angry Charlie because he, in his words, was the first pedal that he'd ever played that had enough gain to stand by itself and had tonefully sounded good enough to be like another gain channel on his amp. He began running the Lone Star on the clean channel and using the pedal for all the distortion, and he really decided that he liked it. So JHS found out he was using the pedal, contacted him and asked him if he'd be interested in doing a signature pedal. He said yes, and that brings us all the way to the signature pedal by JHS. It is basically, for the most part, it's a modded Angry Charlie. When I bought my pedal, I went down to a local store here called Bad Axe. If you haven't been there, go there. Awesome store. If you're tired of the same old thing of Guitar Center and Sam Ash, and you want to actually sit down and sit in a room with a bunch of boutique pedals, boutique amps, and upper end guitars, this is your store. But anyway, I went down to Bad Axe. I took the AT1, and my specific purpose that day was to head to head this pedal against every pedal they had in their case. And if I found one that operated better than this one, then I would get that pedal. But my point was to either weed this pedal out or approve the pedal. It's like either or. This was either going to be the best pedal in the case or it wasn't, basically. And I'll be honest with you, I went in there and it was the best pedal in the case for most things, for most applications. There may have been like one or two pedals that I liked just because it did a very specific thing. But the funny thing is I could still pull those things out of this pedal. And that was, I can't remember the name of the pedal now, but it was another pedal by JHS that I really liked. They did something completely different, but I could dial that into this pedal. I still felt like that pedal did just a little bit better because that's what it was predominantly designed for, but this pedal still would do it. So at the end of the day, the two best pedals in that case were this one and another one by JHS. And I put it against everything. I put it against the MXR 5150. I put it against the Earthquaker, was it the Palisades? I think that's the one that has all the different versions of Tube Screamer in it. I literally put it against every overdrive pedal that they had in the case by every manufacturer. And this, for me, for my ear, for my taste, for my money, this was hands down the best one. Let's get into a couple of little things about the pedal that I think make it really excel over other ones. There were other pedals I thought in stock form sounded as good, but they were locked into a very specific sound and they could not go above and beyond that. So whereas I thought the MXR 5150 pedal was a good pedal, but it basically, it does what it does. The EVH MXR, whatever, 5150 pedal does that sound, and it does variations of that sound. It does it very well. This pedal will do that, will approximate that sound with a little tweaking on your amp, and on the pedal it'll approximate that sound, but then it'll do so much more. So it's just more versatile pedal. Here's the things that make this pedal really awesome. One, this pedal will operate at 9 volts, and it'll also operate at 18 volts. And I can tell you from experience, you're going to want to run it at 18. I ran it at 9 volts and loved it because that's what I tried it at. I ran it at 9 volts forever. I started recording, I started laying down some new tracks last week, and I just plugged it into that. I said, I just want to try 18 volt just to see. I plugged it into the 18 volt side, and man, I really liked it then. Now, I'm going to tell you now, I don't feel like going from 9 to 18 is like this night and day difference to the ear. It's more of a difference of how it feels under the fingers. I know some people like that doesn't make sense, but if you played for a while, you know that your amplifier and your pedal are just as much an instrument as your guitar is, and the notes feel a different way depending on what piece of gear you're plugged into. 18 volts running through this, it feels like an amp channel under your fingers. You know what I mean? It's got just the right amount of sustain, crunch, and chewiness. It's great. It's just a great pedal. So that's one thing I think stepped it up on some of the other pedals. Another thing is there's a dip switch on here. There's a three position dip switch. Now what GHS says is one position is supposed to be a 100 watt amp, one is supposed to be one's supposed to be a 100 watt amp, one's supposed to be a 50 watt amp, one's supposed to be a 25 watt amp. I don't know that I get that from it when I'm playing it. But realistically, I don't care, because what I do get is, to me, in my feeling, what I actually get out of that is I get 3 different stages of compression. I have the center position, which is supposed to be the 100 watt amp, which is the most uncompressed out of all of them. 50 watts a little bit more compressed and you get a little bit of a volume drop. 25 is a little bit more compressed and you get even more volume drop. But with that compression, you're also getting a little more gain. So depending upon how much gain on the top end of the spectrum you want, that's where you want to put that toggle. If you like a real open crunch sound, you're probably going to want it at the 100 watt in the middle. Okay, also the other thing, that's the second thing that makes this great. The third thing that makes it great, and this is the last thing, is I really like what they did with the EQ on this amp. You have like an EQ knob, which is like, you know, that goes without saying what the EQ knob is. But then underneath the EQ knob, or tone knob, either way, underneath that what you have is an air knob. And what the air is basically like a presence knob. So it really helps you to darken up the pedal, but yet still retain some highs, which is really cool for pedals, because if you've ever had like any of the versions of the Tube Screamer that I've used, like the Ibanez version or the MXR OD808, you know, that's one of the things that if you're into really dark sounds, it's really kind of hard to get that balance of dark but still maintain that crispiness you need for the note separation. It's really hard to maintain that on those pedals. On this pedal, not so much, because you can darken it up and then use that presence knob to bring a little bit of that treble and snap back into the guitar signal. So I think that was a really good design. That is one of the things that is different. So now, those 3 things are basically what separates this from an Angry Charlie. Now the Angry Charlie, let me tell you, you can't go wrong with that pedal either. I tried that one, and this one's based off the Angry Charlie, but it's not an Angry Charlie. I mean, like I said, it's a modded Angry Charlie, but if you had to have these next to each other, tonally, they're a little bit different from each other. So, with all that being said, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through. I have a single channel amp here. It's a Paul Reed Smith blister tone. I've got my amp set. I'm going to set it up for clean. I usually run it with a little bit of crunch, but for this demonstration, I don't want anything adding or taken away from the distortion coming out of the pedal. So I'm going to run this amp completely clean for this demo. So let's get everything plugged up, turned on, and ready to go, and get myself turned on. So let me get a little more energy drink in me. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday, so I need the energy.